The moment man devoured the fruit of knowledge, he sealed his fate. Entrusting his future to the cards, man clings to a dim hope. Yet the arcana is the means by which all is revealed. Beyond the journey you have taken lies the absolute end. It matters not who you are. One thing is always certain. Death awaits all.
This is a quote describing the relationship between humans and death, how we all fear it, how initially we all reject it, but whether we like it or not, regardless of our importance or beliefs, it will come regardless, and there is nothing that can be done to stop that fact. The quote itself comes from the character of Nyx, who is the final boss of Persona 3 Reload. What the quote also describes, however, is the very philosophy of the phrase memento mori, a Latin phrase that when directly translated refers to remember you must die. This phrase is the very thesis of Persona 3 Reload, and also the very same logic that the Death Museum in Los Angeles, California operates on when it comes to its exhibits. Because of this, I believe that an exhibit relating to fiction as a whole featuring Persona 3 Reload would make a perfect fit into the Museum of Death's wider art exhibit in LA due to the general theme of death in the story and how it runs parallel to the very logic that the museum operates on itself. Released in February of 2024 by Atlas and developed by P Studio, Persona 3 Reload is technically a remake of all of these, but more so just a remake of these, and follows the story of whatever you decide to name the main character. This is an RPG, so you get aspects of freedom when it comes to the main character and how he behaves. For the sake of simplicity, however, we're going to be calling him Makoto Yuki, which is the official name given to him by Atlas and spin-off content such as the Persona 3 anime and Persona Q for the Nintendo 3DS. Focusing on Reload specifically, however, we follow Makoto Yuki as he transfers to a new high school following the death of his parents in childhood. Upon arriving at the high school, you quickly get acquainted with and become friends with characters such as your go-to healer Yukari Takiba, best friend Junpei Ori, class president Mitsuru Kirijo, and Gekkoukan High School boxing legend Akihiko Sanada. These are the main members of your party called C's to start out, but you do gain more members as the story progresses. Members like Ken Amada, Koromaru, Shinjiro Aragaki, and Aigis. Together, you must work together to discover the secrets of the Dark Hour, the secret 25th hour of the day in which the evil species known as Shadows attack people and cause them great amounts of harm, and even death. To do this, you must scale Tartarus, the giant 250 plus floor monolith that your school transforms into during the Dark Hour, all while finding out the mystery of a mysterious ghost child that speaks to you as well. While this plot may sound like a simple mystery story, what makes it stand out compared to others are the lovable characters, intriguing combat system, and well-explored themes of death that completely fill the game throughout its 80-plus hour runtime. As mentioned previously, Persona 3 is a game that is all about death, hence the choice in Museum. This can be seen everywhere in the game, even in the opening cutscene when booting it up. Though the theme of death in and of itself is not the reason as to why this game deserves a spot in the museum, but rather its themes of accepting it. And nowhere is this seen as prominently as it is with the game's dungeon, Tartarus. Each Persona game has its own unique dungeons to explore as you progress, with Reload being no different. What makes Tartarus stand out from the others, though, is its presentation and inseparable connection to the story. But what is Tartarus? Well, Tartarus itself is the result of an experiment to harness the power of shadows gone wrong, resulting in an explosion at Gekkoukan High School that claimed the lives of many students. As a result of the experiment, shadows had gotten out of control, thus altering reality and creating both the Dark Hour and Tartarus. There are 7 blocks in Tartarus, and according to the Persona 3 Anything Goes World Guide Q&A, each block is named after a series of Jewish teachings that speak of the world, life, and death, with the names in order being Thebel, Arka, Yabasha, Zaya, Haraba, and Adama. The seventh block has no official name. The designs for these blocks each have different elements that reflect the game's themes of death. For instance, in the same guidebook, it is explained that Thebel in particular was designed specifically to look like the hallways of a school, subtly foreshadowing the tragic reveal of Tartarus to come. The motif of death is everywhere in Tartarus, especially in Thebel, with blood splatters being all over the floor and walls. What makes the dungeon an important piece of Persona 3's puzzle, however, lies not with what goes on inside, or even the blocks themselves, but rather what awaits at the top of the tower. Death, or rather, its physical form, Nyx, awaits once the final block of Tartarus is reached. This makes Tartarus a setting based around the very notion of facing the inevitability of death, something that the Museum of Death prides its logic on, with photos of real crime scenes filling multiple exhibits, similar to the blood of long-past students in the early Thebel block of Tartarus, both existing with the purpose of getting one to face their fear of the inevitable. This begs the question, though, whether physically or metaphorically, why does death await at the top of Tartarus? Most of Persona 3's motifs relating to death are not super present in the early game. This is not the case in the game's third act, as by this point, the despair of what's to come is fully realized. Each of the 13 boss shadows you are tasked with defeating is reflective of a specific arcana, and after defeating them all with the goal of completely exterminating the Dark Hour, it is revealed to you that your mission this whole time was a sham. Ikutsuki reveals himself to have been a traitor this whole time, with the real reason Seize was formed being revealed to have been a cover-up, and instead of the Dark Hour being destroyed after these bosses are defeated, instead what this does is free the avatar of death itself, Nyx, who is revealed to have been the mysterious ghost child talking to you throughout the game, sealed away inside of Makoto after initially being defeated at the site of the Tartarus situation. Once Nyx is unsealed, however, he takes on a human form, becoming good friends with the main cast under the name Ryoji, who, for the first time as a human being, is able to experience love, friendship, and camaraderie with other individuals. This conflicts him deeply, because even though he cares for everyone, and truly loves the bond he has grown over his short period of life, he is still the physical avatar of Nyx, the Death Arcana, and has no choice but to end the world. Having cared for you, the player, however, Ryoji offers you a choice. Either kill him and erase all memories of the Dark Hour for you and your friends, letting you live out your days peacefully, or object, and instead face an undefeatable opponent. Killing him will result in the bad ending of the game, causing everyone to forget the events that brought them together in the first place, thus losing all character development that the main cast had gained throughout the story. As far as bad endings in games go, it's a rather unique one, with the game not directly telling you that the choice you made was the wrong one. Instead, it just lets the cutscenes evoke the feeling of, hey, you chose this, that's it. Either way, however, Nyx makes it clear to you that no matter what you choose, death is the result that you and everybody you love will eventually face. This is the same inevitability of death that many exhibits in the museum attempt to evoke the feeling of, mainly through pieces such as coffins and photos of people peacefully lying in bed after passing away, showing an acceptance of death. If killing Ryoji results in the bad ending, however, then what about the good ending? Before letting you decide, Ryoji gives you 1 month to let Makoto and the rest of Seize think it over. Throughout this month is the most despair the game plunges you into. The once colorful dorm is now desaturated, having a gray, lifeless atmosphere to it. The music shifts from the chill Lotus Juice rapping to a slow, depressing piano melody. Even your interactions with the rest of your friends are bleak, with all of them slowly processing that it is very likely they are going to die, and soon at that. As the day to make your decision arrives closer, however, your friends have a different outlook. They want to fight. They want to stare death in the eye and defeat it, regardless of the impossibilities. And you have the option to let them. Doing so will give you a whole extra month to scale Tartarus, where on January 31st, upon reaching the top, you face Nyx. This battle is long and tough, having 13 separate phases, one for each arcana, just like the bosses you face throughout the game. After defeating Nyx's 13th phase, the Death Arcana, he begins to take his final form, absorbing the moon and initiating the beginning of the end. Just when it seems all is lost, however, Makoto is faced with the bonds he forged throughout the game, using the power of the faith they stow in you, their friend, to face Nyx alone. Doing this, however, comes at the cost of a deep sacrifice, your life, along with the memories you and your friends obtain throughout your journey. Through sheer resolve, however, Makoto promises to remember his friends no matter what, and hangs on to his life for another 2 months, letting C's remember everything, and give them the ability to see him one final time on the rooftop, where he peacefully passes away on Aegis's lap. It's important to note that while the cutscene itself leaves things ambiguous as to Makoto's fate, the song Memories of You that plays during the credits makes no mistake letting you know that the character you have played for over 80 hours is dead. With lyrics such as, "If I ever lose you, I will find you, I will never leave you," and "You defended this fragile and fleeting world with your hands, so please, fold your wings and rest," being what is sung to the player as the credits roll across the screen. A parallel can be drawn here between Makoto and Ryoji, with their similarities both lying in not having a family, or even many friends. The most notable similarity, however, comes in the ways in which they react to the bonds they forge throughout their journey, with Makoto realizing his bonds and the importance of them just as Ryoji did. Only instead of being faced with the ultimate destiny to end the world, Makoto instead fights for them, accepting his own death in place of the lives he touched. Lives like Junpei, Yukari, Aegis, and even Ryoji himself. Because as we see at the end, even he does not want this. The character arc of Makoto Yuki is one that runs parallel to the very logic of the museum, being one that faces death fearlessly, accepting it after many challenges and trials in order to save those he cares about most, just as the museum asks its visitors to do upon stepping in. It is important to note that Makoto comes to this conclusion after gaining insight thanks to the friendships he made throughout his journey. However, one bond in particular exemplifies the logic of the museum better than any other in the whole game. Persona is a franchise that covers many themes, but if I had to pick one that pertains to the entire series as a whole, it would have to be the notion of your strength is your bond, with the mechanic of social links allowing you to become stronger in combat the more you grow them. One social link in particular, however, is crucial to the themes of Persona 3, to the point where skipping it practically results in missing half of the game thematically. This social link is of course Akinari Kamiki, the Sun Arcana. After progressing in a few other social links, Akinari will shortly become available at the park bench every Sunday. Upon interacting with him, you quickly learn that he is suffering from a genetic disease, and could die at any given day now. Akinari becomes quickly acquainted with Makoto, finding comfort in talking to someone that does not take pity on him. This causes Akinari to open up to you a little more, sharing his enjoyment of stories and books. With this enjoyment, though, comes what he views as despair, as he can never bring himself to finish a story no matter how far he gets. This stems from the belief in seeing no real point of finishing them, as after all, once they're done, then all he has to look forward to is the fate he was assigned from birth. He even would go as far as to say he believes he has no right to finish a book, stating that it's not his place since the stories were not written for him, but rather it's the author that wrote it for themselves. Something good did come of this belief, however, as it led to Akinari writing his own story.
Say, how do you feel about a pink alligator? I thought so too. I knew you'd understand. See, it's the main character of a story that I'm writing. He was born in a lush green forest, but he turned out to be pink. He stands out so much that he can't hunt for food easily, so he's always hungry. The other animals dislike him and call him disgusting, almost like he's cursed. So he was used to living alone. But one day, he made a friend. It was a little bird that had trouble flying. Every day, the bird would stand on the pink alligator's back and practice. This was the alligator's first friend, and he was very happy. They started going to the river every day, and the alligator would listen to the little bird sing. But the pink alligator still had trouble hunting because of his color. He was so terribly easy to spot, and his prey always had plenty of time to escape. Eventually, he became so hungry that he grew dizzy. And one afternoon, he accidentally ate the bird as it slept in his mouth. Of course, he immediately realized what he'd done. He drank swamp water to vomit his friend back up. But he was too late. The bird was already dead. After that, he couldn't bring himself to eat anything. After the alligator ate his friend, the bird, he cried and cried for a long time. In fact, he was so sad that he drowned in his own tears. His tears became a sparkling lake, around which grew beautiful flowers, and a tree that bore delicious fruit. The other animals in the forest came there often to relax, but none of them knew the alligator had created it, or that he was gone. The end.
While the story may seem very depressing at first glance, it is actually a perfect reflection for the themes of death in Persona 3. More specifically, death's ultimate role in life being not the end, but rather just another chapter. This can be seen in Akinari's story, as even though the pink alligator passed away at the end, its life still had purpose, with all of the other animals finding peace in the tear-filled grave that Akinari's story ends on. If the end of Makoto's journey is about him facing death and finding meaning through the big impacts that he had made, then Akinari's is about facing death on a much smaller scale. Many point to Aigis' quote of, "You don't have to save the world to find meaning in life. All you need is something simple," as one that applies to the game as a whole. While this is true, nowhere does this quote apply more than the character of Akinari, someone who, despite being fated to die at an early age, found meaning in the smallest things towards the end of his life. Just small things like talking to a friend every Sunday or writing a kid's book were enough for him to say that he had a fulfilling life. This is something that the Museum of Death's founders aim to invoke in people, with them even directly stating that they view the many exhibits as life-affirming, and signs that a visitor should find comfort in the life that they have chosen for themselves. Something Akinari did, despite the bad hand he was dealt. Whether or not video games are art is a topic that has been up for debate ever since gaming's inception, and more specifically, whether or not they should be preserved in a museum. And while they are featured in some, such as the Museum of Modern Arts in New York, guidelines are usually strict, focusing mainly on the game's code as its history, with MoMA curators even going on record stating that they intend to mainly show the code. To me at least, this makes their exhibit seem more like a showcase of technology, viewing games as a program to be built upon, rather than a piece of art that can make an impact on someone. It's because of this that I believe a push to put video games in more museums centered around their respective themes would be a notion that would allow games to be viewed more as works of art capable of producing timeless interactive stories. The same is already done with board games, with their history being displayed at museums such as the SFO Museum in California. So why can the same not be said for video games? They are both works of art meant to evoke some kind of emotion. In the case of board games, this can even be seen with the many iterations of the game of life, and how no matter what iteration you're playing, the theme of that game always revolves around the ideal goals of life that capitalism sets, with the player winning at life via the amount of money they have. If artistic and historical merit can be found in a simple board game that everyone played growing up, then why can the same not be said for a medium that produces stories capable of being on par with the likes of films and movies? The Museum of Death in particular does not display any video games, but with the amount of stories that fit into the messages that the museum is trying to get across, combined with art being a major part of the location already, then an exhibit showcasing fiction as art would not be too much of a stretch to envision. And with Persona 3 Reload being a game that already features a story themed around facing death, along with many different sets, characters, and story elements to support it, then I firmly believe that it has earned its spot among the exhibits at the Museum of Death in Los Angeles, California.